Welcome back to another episode of Real Results with Coach Joe. I'm your host, Joe Villegas. This is the program where we help you to improve your health, increase your wealth, and live a more fulfilling life. And I am very excited today because with me, I've got my new friend, Felix Lin. Felix is the CEO of a company called Konfidently, helping organizations reach levels of elite teamwork. And he's also a senior trainer for Tony Robbins, which is how I had the pleasure of getting to meet you, Felix, was through our last event. So real excited to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining.
Hey, Joe, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk even more with you.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. We're going to have some fun, 100%. So I want to get right into it. I know you've got your company, Konfidently, which, like we said, helps organizations get to that elite level of teamwork. And it's not just so much for organizations as it is for the employees themselves. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today, about how folks can really kind of find their fit when it comes to looking for a job, a company, and that sort of deal. So, we had talked previously about some really staggering statistics coming through the pandemic. I would love to kind of maybe start with that and give folks sort of a lay of the land. So just hit us with some numbers, my man.
Okay, yeah, so a lot of people talk about the Great Resignation, right? So the Great Resignation, if you go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics for the government, the last 2 years, 2021, 2022, 47 million people quit their jobs in 2021. 50.5 million people quit their jobs in 2022. And so it's close to 100 million people. It's a very large number. What makes that really insane is that there are only 164 million people working in the U.S. So in the last 2 years, that means 60% of the jobs have turned over.
Wow.
That is a staggering number. That, I couldn't comprehend what it was until I actually looked at them.
Yeah.
But just those numbers are just wild. That means a lot of people were really upset with the environment that they had.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's only, 300 million something people in America anyway, right? It's like a third of the country is like turning over.
Yeah, so just that, and there's a lot of reasons for people leaving their job. It could be money, it could be they don't have growth, it could be the leadership style, right? And that many people turning over. So and then the next level is that Paychex, the payroll company in the U.S., they actually went and they did a study. They talked to people who left their jobs in 2021, 2022. They found out that 80% of the people who left regretted their choice. They wanted to go back to their old job.
Oh my gosh. That is, can you imagine that? Like, basically, out of every 10 people, 8 of them wish they were back at the old place that they were upset with or unsatisfied with to begin with, and now they're looking to go back, and hopefully they can get there. Maybe they don't.
So if you're an employer, that means that if you hired somebody in 2021 or 2022, there could be a strong chance that that person is just not very happy. Right. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just a really bad match.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, and the job itself could have been great. It's just the matching of the culture, the matching of the leadership styles are just all wrong.
Right.
And our the way that people interview, it just doesn't match up. It just doesn't work well. It hasn't worked well in a long time.
For sure. And so I definitely want to touch on that. It's like you're like the corporate matchmaker. So we'll get to the company side of things. I definitely want to talk about the employee side of things, right? We spend a good chunk of our lives working. That's for most of us anyway. We spend a lot of time at work, and that is our source of income, our source of monetary wealth, as it were. So what are some things we can maybe touch on for employees today to help them to maybe identify a better opening for themselves, or even in the existing company they're at, to maybe start to make it a better fit?
Yeah, so in the interview process, it's really important to be able to evaluate a company, right? Because I in the past 20-something years, I've interviewed over 10,000 people. I've placed thousands in the doing both executive search and overall placement.
Right.
And so patterns show up, right? Yes. And there are questions that you can ask specifically to understand whether or not a company is going to be a great fit. Mm-hmm. The first thing is to see how they treat each other during the interview process, especially when you have a panel interview. Mm-hmm. And I used to love this when I go to visit companies, just to see how they would treat me. They had no idea who I was coming in the door. Right. Are they treating me with like, hey, can I help you? Like, what is their overall attitude? People walking through the lobby and talking to each other. How do they treat each other?
Right.
Are people in your interview talking over each other? Are they arguing with each other even in front of you, right? A lot of people put this aside just to get a job.
Right.
And to not, yes, sometimes we do have to get a job. There's no doubt. If you have a couple of opportunities and you have a couple of choices, then you can also understand which one's going to be better for you. So the first one is, how do people treat each other? Are they treating each other with respect? Are they treating each other that it's just very transactional, right? What is the feeling you get from it? Look at it from a number of different companies and decide what kind of company you want to work in. That's one of the most important ones.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's huge. And I think too is, I'm sure we'll get into a couple more points that you have, but I think this is great because it gives people almost like an anchor to get outside of the nervousness of being in an interview and give them something to look for, right? Like I'm going to come into a situation, shake some hands, answer some questions, but at the same time, let's, in the back of my mind, thinking, okay, how are they treating each other? Are they being kind? Are they conversational? What's that, as the kids would say, what's the vibe like, right? So I think that's
very much so.
Yeah, a great place to focus on.
So the second point that I would tell people to ask, and this is probably the most important, is to understand how the company pushes production. There are three main ways that companies push production. And the first one is through pressure and competition. So people love competition, right? People love to win for sure.
Right.
In these kind of companies, they want people to beat each other. Right. You have to outperform everybody all the time. And they put either a pressure on that. So that means that if you are number one, you get highly rewarded. If you are beaten, then you have a chance of being fired, right? So even if you've done pretty well, so like for instance, I won't name companies, like some companies that like one of my friends worked for, he managed 100 people.
Right.
Every year he had to fire 8 to 10 people.
Wow.
Didn't matter like how their performance was, he had to let people go. Man. Because the message it sent was that, hey, look, if you're not performing at a high level, then you're going to get let go. And he hated it because he spent a lot of time with each person to make sure that they were improving, they were getting better, they were performing for the company.
Right.
And so, but companies like this are Amazon, Netflix, General Electric, any company that requires you beating somebody else in billable hours in order to become a partner.
Yeah.
Right. So all those models are all about the competition. So if you love that environment, then you're the kind of person that wants to beat other people and get highly rewarded. Right. Nothing wrong with that. You just need to know that that's what the environment you want to work in.
Right, right.
The second kind of environment is the teamwork environment. Companies like this are Starbucks and Walmart.
Yep.
These companies where if the store hits a goal, everybody shares in the reward, and people, and sometimes a lot of people just get paid the same.
Right.
So in those kind of situations, those people love to depend on other people for their work product. So Joe, if you and I love that environment, then you and I, your work dependent upon my product, my work dependent on your product, and we love working with each other because we can depend on each other, and it just makes it, we're coming to work awesome, right?
Yeah.
We just really enjoy being with each other in the office, and even if you did 20% more than me, that's okay, because you're like, hey, Felix looks out for me. He watches my back. He makes sure that we get things done. He lets me know like when things are going sideways. We have great communication. We're okay with that.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have somebody, just think about this. If everybody's seen this before. If you have a competition person working in a teamwork environment, and that person is like, I'm doing 20% more than Felix. Yeah. Why am I getting paid the same?
Yep.
Right? And then they start complaining. The teamwork management looks at this and go, hey, why is this person's a bad apple? They're just complaining all the time. It's not that they're a bad apple. They're just in the wrong organization, right? So understanding what drives you, how you like to be compensated, how you like to work is very important. The third method is called individual merit. Okay. Individual merit companies are like Salesforce and Zappos. Zappos to the point where they eliminated all their management roles. Wow. They have a very specific hiring strategy that they find people that are extremely resourceful. They love what they do. They don't need to be told by a manager what to do. Right. If they have a specific outcome and they know the outcome, they know what they're supposed to do, they will just drive toward it themselves.
Nice.
And they typically don't want to work with a lot of other people.
Right.
They want to be compensated based on what they bring to the table. And so like if you have a bonus system, then they are very happy with, okay, if you hit A, B, and C, and these are all under your control, then you're going to get comp. You're going to get bonus because of that. Right. They don't need to be compared to other people. So competition can be fun, but it's not what they want to do, right? They don't have the urge to beat other people.
Right.
The first part is understanding, what are those three that you fall into? Like, Joe, I don't know if I ever asked you this, but what do you love?
So I think for me, probably I would lean into like the teamwork or like that third category where it almost sounds not like an entrepreneur, but almost like an intrapreneur, right? Like you want to be in there, have the autonomy, get your hands dirty and do it yourself. But I do like working in a team setting. I mean, heck, I'd put on a Starbucks apron with you any day and get behind the counter and start making coffees, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And so I had a really good friend who lived here in LA, and he decided he was a vice president of project management. He was an agile expert. Decides to leave Los Angeles and go to Seattle. Right, he wants to get out of our big city here and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So he gets a job with Amazon, and within 6 months, he's gone. He left.
Wow.
He said it was the worst environment he's ever had because he is a teamwork guy. He is sharing all information. He wants the kumbaya, right? He wants everybody up to speed, working together tightly, and that's just like the way that he likes it.
Yep.
And Amazon is it was very cutthroat.
Yeah.
I could not depend on anybody else's everybody seemed to have an agenda. Right. I couldn't necessarily I couldn't know if their information they were giving me was the exact information I needed, right? Because it just seemed very off. Right. And so he left. It was a miserable experience. And that's the crazy part is that, Jeff Bezos has written books on competition.
Right.
And that's what Amazon is. And even Amazon doesn't ask it, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because they would have known right away that if they knew this, he wouldn't be the right fit.
Right.
And he goes, it was just a pain. And I'm certain everybody's experienced this kind of mismatch.
Yeah, that's nuts. I think it's so that is vital, right? Because you may be in need of a job, which is huge. But if you find yourself 6 months into it saying, I can't do this, right? Like you could get burnt out or whatever, now you're back to not having a job again. So a little bit of homework up front is definitely helpful for sure. Is there a way, Felix, that folks maybe could bring that up in the interview conversation? How would you go about asking that question if you're obviously, you don't know much about the organization, you've only been there for a few minutes in the interview, right?
Yeah, so you just ask every person that you run into, right? Every person you have a chance to interview with, you ask them, how does this company drive production? That's the question.
Right.
They won't know the three. All they're going to do is describe how the company does it. You ask the hiring manager as well, how do you expect somebody to perform how do you expect somebody to perform in your team, right? And they'll just tell you they need to do this, this, and this. We have a structure here where everybody pushes each other, right? And so you'll know it's competition right away.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's a great tool to have in your tool belt as someone who's going to an interview to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success, right? If you can bring that kind of teamwork element to the party and it is a teamwork environment, you're most likely going to thrive, right? So I think that's really huge. And so,
and you can also, and the great part is that if you know that's what they are looking for, and it's a match to you, then you can describe all of it that you've been doing all of these years, how you really enjoy the teamwork kind of environment, or you hey, Mr. Manager, just give me their individual merit, just give me this is what I love. If you give me the project and give me the outcome, I'll go make things happen. I'll let you know when things are if there's any questions or challenges, and you'll see the manager go, oh wow, that's exactly what I want. I want somebody just to go make it happen.
Right. They're probably
and
salivating
so if
now.
that's what they love and that's what you love, you can actually stand out to them.
That's awesome.
Which is really important.
That's huge. That's like a little superpower to have in your back pocket. So, Felix, I think this is obviously awesome so far, and I want to continue this conversation. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll get back to the interview process here.
Got an awesome network and save money doing it.
I know, $25. I love that it's guaranteed for 3 years.
Hey, we're sitting on a sign here.
Switch and get Welcome Unlimited for $25 a line, guaranteed for 3 years. Verizon.
Have you heard? Join me, Heather Darling, weekly for a different spin on politics, business, law, and other key issues you will not want to miss right here on RVN TV.
See, son, with a little elbow grease, you can do just about anything.
Thanks, Dad.
That's right, Robert. And it's never too early to learn you could save with America's #1 motorcycle insurer.
That's right, Jamie. But it's not just about savings. It's about the friends we make along the way.
You said it, Flo. And don't forget to floss before you brush. Your gums will thank you.
That's right, Dr. Gary.
Jamie?
Sorry, I had another thought, so I got back in line.
What was it?
I can't remember.
My dream day with Offset starts like...
Cardi, baby, get in.
I surprise you with a place all to ourselves.
Thank you, baby.
You look gorgeous tonight, baby. We share our favorite McDonald's order.
And we start with a cheers. Let's eat. The Cardi B.
An Offset meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome back to Real Results. Again with me today, I've got Felix Lin, CEO of Konfidently, and we are just getting, neck deep in a whole conversation about crushing your next interview, basically. So, Felix, we had talked about a few kind of like little tips and tricks folks can use to better understand like the vibe at an organization, how people interact with each other, and also how they drive productivity, if it's a competition-based, team-based, or more individual merit. Now, I know there's the topic of leadership is a big one for sure in your arena, and I think it would be really great for us to touch on that so people can understand how they like to be led when it comes to a job. So let's riff on that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been teaching this a lot at the youth leadership program that we do. There are 6 leadership styles, and this is by a gentleman named Daniel Goleman. He wrote the book on emotional intelligence. Yep. He and his team, they're brilliant. So they went out and looked for what are the styles? They didn't put a number on it. They said, what are the styles that people follow?
Right.
What are the styles that people use, that people respond to? And they realized they only came up with 6. Now, the great part about the 6 is that there are only 6 that you have to know. As a leader, as a person who interacts with other people and wants to influence other people, there are only 6 things that people look for.
Right.
The great part about it is that now with those 6, there are great ways to do them. And there are really terrible ways to do them. So the first one, for an example, everybody will recognize all 6 because you've lived it. You've actually experienced it with all the different leaders that you've worked with. So the first one is commander. When people say commander, usually it's a negative connotation. People who are inflexible, they don't listen to other people, they're bullheaded, they're very intense, they yell at their people. There's a lot of negative connotations to commander that people have run into.
Right.
What a lot of people don't realize is that the great commanders do the following things. 1, they're direct with people. You always know where you stand.
Right.
The second is that they make decisions quickly. So if you like somebody who makes decisions quickly, you love a great commander.
Right.
The third is that they get people unstuck. So if there's a team that's stuck, they just go do A, B, C, and D, and you'll get them unstuck and moving in the right direction.
Right, right.
The last thing is that they are very clear with their outcomes. So if you've ever had a leader that told you exactly what you needed to get done and like what the target was and what the specifics about that target were, that's also a great commander. So our goal in life is to be a great commander, work with great commanders, and not be a bad commander, right?
Right.
So the second style is affiliative. The affiliative style is all about relationships, friendships, and that bonding that happens in teams.
Yeah.
So some people love being in that kind of environment where the people are really tight. And usually the affiliative leaders love their activities, right? They'll take people out to lunch, to dinner, happy hours, go-karting. They want their teams to do things to bond together.
Right.
And so where it goes really wrong though, is some people who are very introverted and they get forced into doing these events, they have a really hard time with it, right? And the mentor's not really paying attention.
Right.
Also, another way that an affiliate leader goes wrong is that they force you to do their activities even though it's costing you production. If you had a deadline that day and they're still telling you to take out Bob because it's his first day in the office and we're all going out to lunch and they don't care about your deadline, that becomes a big problem.
Right.
So the third leadership style is coaching. The great coach is all about talking about the result, giving you specifics about what you did great, also talking to you about what you could improve and giving you specifics about what you can do to get better.
Right.
Bad coaches come in 2 flavors. One is that they are nondescript. They don't give you any kind of specific feedback. Leaves you wondering what was great and what you could do better.
Right.
But the worst ones are the hypercritical. You just launched something that you spent months on getting done. Everybody's excited. Everybody's super happy. It's just completely changed how you guys do business.
Right.
And here comes this boss that says, hey, in the documentation that you put out, page 3 has a typo on it.
Oh, no.
Right? And their intent wasn't necessarily bad.
Right.
That's just what they learned. They just thought that if by telling people what's wrong, they get better faster.
Right.
And they don't realize in human psychology, by keeping it very positive in the beginning and then helping people understand what they can improve makes a huge difference, right?
Sure.
So the fourth one is democratic. Those leaders love to ask their teams about everything that what do we do next? What do we do next? What are your ideas? And some of these leaders actually gather their, they actually allow their teams to vote on and make the decision. Where Democratic leaders go wrong, they're almost opposite of a great commander. They fail to make decisions. So if your project is dragging a week or two because the manager or whoever's in charge isn't making a decision, that's a Democratic leader gone wrong.
Right, right.
The fifth one is a pace setter. Pace setter loves to increase production, loves to increase output. These people are usually leaders that go first. Right. So an example would be Elon Musk sleeping on a cot in his office. Right. And he's that one thing. Elon Musk is a very divisive figure. Right. The one thing I can say about him is he actually will go first.
Right.
No matter what he does, he'll go first. Not all leaders are like that.
Right.
So whether you like him or not, that is something that he is willing to do as a pace setting leader. Right. Sure. And so some pace setting leaders are great at creating efficiency. They'll have their teams be use technology, processes, procedures, trainings to do more in less time.
Right.
The worst bosses on the pace setting side are the ones that grind you for no reason. You got everything done by 2. You have a few hours that you can go out and get some things done. Right. And they're like, no, sit back down. Everybody else sees you leaving. They think they can leave too, so you can't leave. These bosses have a hard time if they don't see people working. They're not working. Right. So they have a hard time with that. The last one is visionary. Visionary leaders love their ideas. They love the process of coming up with ideas. They love getting other people excited about ideas. Where they go wrong is where they put on too many ideas onto their team at once. And I was very guilty about that. Every Tony event that I used to come back, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this. And my whole team was just scared out of their minds. And finally I got it that I was just putting way too much on them. Yeah. And I had to get their feedback to make sure that we prioritize things well.
Right. Yeah, that's, it's amazing. It's funny because as soon as you start to say those things, I start to see aspects of that in myself. I feel like I probably fall more into the coach realm. That's sort of where I tend to live, ironically, given the show and everything, but that's kind of more my style, my vibe. As
you titled yourself.
I know. It worked out well. Perfect for the show today. But so let's say if someone's going into an interview, right, the potential job opportunity, how can they start to kind of bring that out in their questions that they ask the employer to know what the sort of styles are?
Yeah, so the first thing you want to know is what you love, right? So the thing is, okay, so how do I like to be led? If you think about the bosses that you've loved having, or the leaders that you really respect that are out there,
right?
You want to think of the top 2 that you really like and why. So is it I want a commander that gives me very specific outcomes, and I love that, or somebody who makes decisions. That's what I respect most in a boss, right? Or is it a great coach? Is it somebody that can help me improve, either a little bit or a lot, but they're giving me the feedback that I'm getting better and better every time, right? Be very clear on the 2 that you want. And when you go to the interview, you ask every person, again, every person you run into, what is the leadership like here? How does the boss, how do they lead? What are their, they won't know the 6 styles. That's the thing. They won't know these 6. So whatever they give back to you, you need to categorize in there. But here's another thing. I believe that this should be a 2-way street. And when we go to companies and we teach them, it should be a 2-way street. I should be asking every person I'm interviewing these questions.
Right.
And I need to know whether I can deliver it for them. Right? Because if I can't deliver what they love the most from me, then I should not be hiring them. Because they're going to have a miserable experience with me, and nobody wants that, right? So just by asking, going both, if you can talk to the hiring manager and have this open conversation about here's what I love about a boss, and if they can do it and they love doing it, or if they are willing to change their style, and I was a weak commander and now I'm a better commander, but my team knows they can ask me for it, and so I can be a commander for them and make those decisions, and so if you can get it from them, then make that match. Yeah. But if it's a place where they can't get it, then, don't hire that person, run away from that company, because you're going to have a miserable experience.
Yeah, no, I think that's so critical. I mean, even just what we've talked about thus far, and I go back to, kind of my early days, even in high school when I had a couple of jobs or fresh out of college, and sort of thinking back to interviews that I had, it's had I had these tools, probably a very different experience overall in terms of what I experienced through work. But you live and you learn. So now I have those lessons, and I can take this myself into the future as a leader. And folks watching this hopefully can take it, for their next interview, or if they're a business owner as well. So Felix, we're kind of coming.
It's really simple concepts, right? That should be very easy to ask questions about, to implement. You just need to kind of sit down and just remember this so that you're armed with it when you go in.
Yeah.
It sucks that 80% of people regret their choice of jobs. That shouldn't happen.
Right.
I mean, that's a miserable experience for everybody.
Yeah, that's nuts. And then just think about how that ripples out to the rest of society, right? With obviously mental health and stress management, things like that in today's workplace, and obviously things that we're kind of helping with Paragon to mitigate. But still, I mean, we can't help everybody. We can only do what we can do. But I think having this to begin with as a baseline is a really great place for folks to start. So Felix, we're coming to the end of our segment here, but where can folks find you if they want to learn more or even bring your team into their organization to help them learn these concepts?
Yeah, so confidently.com with a K, confidently with a K. You can check out our website there. But just if you have any questions, just link up with me on LinkedIn, Felix Lin, and I'm happy to answer any questions to help people. As you can tell, this is something that I love. I know, Joe, you love coaching people and getting it better. This is how I love doing it as well. We want to make sure that people aren't suffering, right? People are getting the best. We have this a short period of time to spend on this earth. Let's make it the best we possibly can.
Love it, 100%. And for folks watching, you can also head over to resultswithjoe.com. Felix will have a little chunk there to feature you as well, so folks can get a hold of you. But thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an absolute pleasure, and I know everyone's going to get a ton out of this. And for those watching, we'll see you on the next episode of Real Results.
Appreciate it, brother.